Okay, ladies, gentlemen, colleagues and friends, a very warm welcome to you all to the Global Seaweed Star online finale. I'm Professor Elizabeth Cottier-Cook and I'm the lead scientist for the Global Seaweed Star programme, and I will be your host for today. Now, before passing to our first speaker, I'm afraid to do some quick housekeeping. So please note, this is a view-only webinar with an open question and answer chat box, which is ready and waiting for your questions. Please do post your questions in this chat box at any time throughout this session, and we will do our very best to answer them in the live Q&A session later in the programme. I also need to inform you that this event is being recorded and will be shared publicly after the event on the Global Seaweed Star website and social media accounts. If you don't want your name to appear on this webinar chat function, which all viewers will see when your question is published, or in any recordings, then please make sure to join on Teams anonymously and do not provide your name or personal details in the chat. Now, with the housekeeping complete, I would like to give a very warm welcome to Professor Nick Owens, Director of the Scottish Association for Marine Science, to give some opening remarks. Over to you, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. That's very kind. And may I actually give my warm welcome to everybody to this webinar, to all the guests and colleagues, and particularly to the Global Seaweed Star team members who have been, they're the stars of the show for this event, that's for sure. And we're really looking forward to hearing all of the fantastic stuff that's come out. Should also like to thank very much an important group of people, and it's the advisory board members. I think you've been very important in ensuring that the project has stayed on track, and as you've contributed enormously to the success of the project. So as said, I'm the director of SAMS, and it's been our great pleasure actually to be the coordinating institute for Global Seaweed Star. It's been an honor actually. I'm sure Liz will be the first to admit that it certainly had its headaches, but actually if I can congratulate Liz and all of the team that's been based at SAMS and everybody that supported it, it's been, as I say, a real honor and a privilege to be part of this fantastic project. I should also like to thank most sincerely the funders of the project. This is a very inspirational new funding stream that the UK Research and Innovation Committee has set up. So the UKRI is a major funding grouping of research councils within the UK, and they had the foresight to actually initiate the Global Challenges Research Fund, and we were very pleased in SAMS and certainly within Global Seaweed Star to be among the first of the projects that were funded in this new research funding initiative. The project's been running for the last 4 years, and what we're going to be seeing today is some really fabulous and inspirational and exceptional research that has been carried out. And in particular, if you think about it, the challenges that you've all had to face with the global pandemic, it's been remarkable, in fact, that the project has managed to carry on almost without noticing the joins, really. And that's a testament, I think, to the organisation, to Liz and the team, but also to all of you who've actually contributed to the project. So I think a sincere and really sort of heartfelt wonderment at actually how well you've all done. So I think the great thing that we're going to hear is, over the next couple of hours or so, is the fantastic work that's been going on amongst all of the team members in the Philippines, Malaysia and Tanzania. Certainly when I very first heard of the project, when Liz was producing it, some of the early thoughts, and I remember her coming to my office, and discussing this potential project, I was really excited actually at the prospect, and it's been wonderful to see it going through its various stages right through to the present day. Whilst this is going to be effectively the end of the formal end of the project, I'm sure there's going to be a tremendous legacy, one of which will be the policy brief. We're going to see a second policy brief later on today, which will follow on from the earlier policy brief that emerged. And so whilst formally the end of a project, I'm sure this is just the beginning of the next stage. And so really now I'd just like to hand over the stage to Professor Juliette Brodie, although she's only going to be here in, I think virtually, she isn't able to be with us personally. So thank you all very much for your attention to me, and I wish you all very well and for the successful end of project meeting. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
A very warm welcome to everyone to the grand finale of Global Seaweed Star. Wow, it seems like only yesterday that we were starting out on this project, and yet so much has changed and so much has been achieved. Our vision for Global Seaweed was to grow the research and innovation capability of DAC-list countries engaged in seaweed farming. We proposed a 4-year challenge-led strategic programme in collaboration primarily with the Philippines, Indonesia and Tanzania. And whilst we lost the Indonesian partner along the way, we were extremely fortunate to bring Malaysia into the project. Another of our goals was to provide practical solutions and long-term capacity building to many other seaweed-producing DAC-list countries, and we did this through the GlobalSeaweedSTAR Fund. When you listen to this talk, all being well, I will be on a ship in the South Atlantic leading a Darwin-funded seaweed biodiversity project. For me, it's going to be an exciting journey, and that makes me think of the Global Seaweed Adventure. The last 4 years have been a momentous journey. There have been huge challenges to overcome. The challenge of interdisciplinary and cross-cultural working, but with some really excellent outcomes. And I also want to note in particular the dedication of the administrative staff. It's easy to take them for granted, but they have had to adapt to UK RI reporting requirements. There have been issues also with simply getting UK visas for the ECRs. And on top of that, and then suddenly we had UK research funding cuts due to a reduction in the overseas development aid budget. But we've ridden out the storms. Everyone has adapted and risen to the challenge, and the success and impact of the project is truly impressive. And I'm sure you'll see that in this meeting. Global Seaweed is transformative. It is a major marker in the history of seaweed aquaculture. From being the end, it's just, and I believe, the beginning of a new era in seaweed aquaculture. We face fundamental, immediate and long-term challenges in the climate crisis, the loss of biodiversity, the displacement of people and livelihoods. But with the wonderful young generation of researchers, I'm truly hopeful for the future. We're living in one of the most challenging times in science, but also one of the most exciting times to be a scientist, especially in seaweeds. And with that, I hope that you will enjoy the rest of this meeting, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Juliette too, who is currently somewhere off the Falkland Islands on a Darwin Initiative project. So she recorded that for us before she left. So thank you so much to Juliette for that opening remarks, and also of course to Nick Owens. Now, please do everyone remember that you can submit your questions at any time throughout this meeting. We have a 20-minute session later on to go through those questions and answer them the best we can. So please do start putting in your questions or continue to put in your questions throughout this meeting. Now we're going to pass over now, I'm going to pass the stage to our 3 overseas partner leads from the Philippines, then from Tanzania, and then from Malaysia, to really showcase the national impact and legacy that they've had in their country, thanks to the funding from Global Seaweed STAR. So without further ado, I'm going to pass to Dr. Anisha Hurtado from the University of the Philippines, Visayas. Over to you for your presentation. Thank you.
A pleasant day to everyone. GlobalSeaweedSTAR Philippines is filled with joy in sharing our milestones and legacies, which we believe will leave a print in the hearts of every stakeholder of the seaweed industry. 4 years have passed. The Philippine team is humbled with some great milestones in the lives of Joseph, Jonalyn, Rema, and G as early career researchers. These 4 young ECRs underwent a 6-month intensive training related to their respective work packages under the mentorship of world-renowned natural and social scientists, which prepared and equipped them to a higher level for their personal and they are now more improved, dedicated, committed researchers who will carry on and continue the legacies of our seaweed projects of the country. Further, Jonalyn and G had joined the university as faculty members at the College of Fisheries and Ocean Sciences and College of Arts and Sciences Social Science Department since August 1, 2020 and March 1, 2021, respectively. With their dedicated and untiring field and lab works and impartial commitment to scientific paper writing, they were able to publish 5 peer-reviewed papers with an open gold access and another paper featured at GenderAquafish.org on gender sensitivity with the unselfish and unending mentorship of the DP, co-DPs, and UK partners. Their regular personal dialogues and communications with these mentors among themselves and as a team of the Philippines provided them further confidence to do tougher and more challenging responsibilities. However, there are several unfinished businesses under GlobalSeaweedSTAR Philippines, and this will go on until all these studies are written and published in peer-reviewed journals. There are 5 manuscripts currently being written and expected to be sent to UK partners for their reviews mid-December, and 4 more manuscripts to be written beyond 2021. As their DP, I vow to mentor the ECRs beyond 2021 to the best of my ability. In recognition of their academic accomplishments of the ECRs and the team as a whole, to the scientific community made us more visible in the arena of international and national webinars as invited plenary speakers, panelists, and resource persons. If the team was able to publish scientific papers in peer-reviewed journals for the academia, we prepared also instructions, education, and communication materials like brochures and posters for the farmers, traders, exporters, and processors in 4 major languages, namely English, Filipino, Bisaya, and Tausug. We are able to disseminate these IECs from north to south and east to west of the country. Likewise, we were able to disseminate outside the Philippines the PDFs of the English brochure posters in 18 countries as reflected in this slide. Here we highlighted the presence of several commercially farmed cultivars of Capophycus alvarezi, K. striatus, and Euchema denticulatum, different farming techniques, problems on ice and epiendophytes, and how to mitigate these major problems. biosecurity measures, and farm management. Likewise, the different risks encountered and experienced by each sector of the industry and how they were able to cope with these several risks. These are our early recipients of the IECs, which range from the major carrageenan processors, government agencies, especially NFRDI and STDC, and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, the different regions, exporter, academia, NGO, and to seaweed farmers. More requests are in preparation. To give meaning and credence to all these accomplishments, the team prepared a policy brief on strengthening a robust and resilient seaweed aquaculture to highlight the challenges of the seaweed industry of the Philippines based from the results of GSTAR project and provided policy recommendations which can sustainably grow the national industry and to ensure its long-term resilience. Likewise, this policy brief aimed to promote the role of seaweed aquaculture in the Philippines in nature-based solution within the blue or sustainable ocean economy agenda and consequently safeguard its long-term future. The national policy brief of the Philippine team contributed substantially to the framing of the global seaweed policy, that is, ensuring the sustainable future of the rapidly expanding global seaweed aquaculture industry. Further, the participation of DPAN and Co-DP King as members of the technical working group in revising PNS 85-2021 and 208-2021, and DPAN as technical seaweed expert consultant in the agriculture and fishery commodity industry roadmap development teams in the Philippines, in particular the Seaweed Industry Roadmap 2022 to 2026. The incorporation of all the science-based results of GlobalSeaweedSTAR project as reflected from these approved standards is something to reckon with. One of the greatest legacies of GSSTAR is the establishment of the very first seaweed lab of UPB, which will house varied research and innovation programs, not only locally, regionally, but most importantly, in international collaborations. The contributions of DUST is highly acknowledged here also. In fact, when the Ocean University of China learned that there is a new seaweed lab at UPV, they immediately entered into an MOA with the College of Fisheries and Ocean Sciences to donate equipment and other needed stuffs worth $30,000 US for the lab. At present, the ECRs are doing micropropagation using tissue culture techniques of Capophycus spp, as well as mass production of microplantlets for land-sea-based nurseries and field cultivation. With the presence of our ECRs and other new seaweed professors in the university, I would see a much brighter light in the horizon. What we have accomplished at GSSTAR is just the beginning. The torch of leadership will be spearheaded by our ECRs in national, regional, and international collaborations. We welcome you all at UPB for future collaborations. Thank you, GCRF, UKRI, and other UK partners for 4 fruitful and productive years of working together as a team, and most importantly, as a family. Though there have been many challenges along the way, we learned a lot that made us more mature and stronger, responsible, and relevant to the needs of the seaweed industry of the Philippines. Again, thank you very much. A short teaser of our snippets will follow that will give us a glimpse of what to expect in the next few weeks. We decided to have these snippets instead of a webinar in order for us to reach our main target, the seaweed farmers, who are the very heart of the industry and who are located in the far-flung islands and barangays of the country. Again, thank you, thank you.
Seaweeds are the leading aquatic commodity in the Philippines, and the country is one of the top seaweed producers in the world.
Hello, I'm Jonalyn Mateo from Work Package 2 Farm Management and Legislation. In this video, I will bring you to the world of seaweed farming.
Sibonga, working on the characterization, conservation, and exploitation of algal genetic resources towards crop improvement.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Anne, and the rest of the Philippines team for that wonderful presentation and wonderful video at the end there. Thank you. So now I'm delighted to pass over to Flower Monsieur. She was one of our partner country leads from the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. So I'd like to pass the stage now to her presentation. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm going to tell you what we have been doing in Tanzania for the past 4 years under the GlobalSeaweedSTAR project. My approach will be that I'll talk of objectives, what objectives we had, what activities we conducted, and what are the outputs, outcomes, and impacts to the nation and to the communities. So one objective was to detect and identify seaweed diseases and pests that affect our cultivated seaweed. And we had activities to produce manual for identification of seaweed diseases, what can be done and so on. And also in establishing the effect of biosecurity practices on seaweed growth and quality, and also to build capacity at the University of Dar es Salaam on identifying diseases and pests. So what are the output, outcome, impact of this objective? We have written a manual on diseases for farmers and other stakeholders. And the manual is written in 2 languages. It is written in Kiswahili and it is written in English. And together with the manual, we have also written a booklet for farmers, which is also bilingual in Kiswahili and English. And this booklet was written when we saw that the language in the manual is too scientific for some of the farmers. So we produced a booklet which is a simple guide to the farmers. So what is the impact to the nation of these 2 documents? There's a huge contribution to national understanding of diseases, effects, mitigation measures, and so on. And here I have to say that this is actually the first manual of its kind in Tanzania, bilingual seaweed disease manual. And to print 500 copies of the manual and 1,000 copies of the booklet. Among these, we will distribute 300 copies of the manual and 600 copies of the booklet to the farmers. And the rest, the 200 copies of manual and 400 copies of that we will distribute to other stakeholders like the ministry. we want to say that more than 2,000 farmers will improve their livelihoods through using or sharing the manual and the booklet. So we expect that more than 2,000. And here I have to say also that we have printing these copies, but we have partners. We have UNIDO, FAO, UN Women, NGOs. So we will print more of these documents and the supply to with permission from the GlobalSeaweedSTAR and from SAMS. These are the two documents. So on the left side, this is the manual. It is in 2 languages. And on the right-hand side, this is the simple guide to farmers, the booklet. So these are 2 of the documents that we have produced. We have built capacity through a workshop that was conducted at the University of Dar es Salaam with a global from SAMS, and through this workshop, 3 early career researchers and 11 University of Dar es Salaam botany staff were identify diseases and to conduct research on seaweed diseases, and they have ability to collect, preserve, and analyze DNA samples. Even myself, I didn't know how to handle DNA samples, but now I can handle DNA samples. And the impact to the nation is that data and knowledge are available for use. And the University of Dar es Salaam staff and the early career researchers, they have ability to conduct study on seaweed diseases, analyze the data, and write papers. We also wanted to look at taxonomic survey of seaweeds. So we wanted to collect and identify seaweeds in coastal areas of Tanzania, and to establish a herbarium for the collected seaweeds, and also to expand the already existing University of Dar es Salaam herbarium. So what was the outcome impact on this? Here, it is the first time that Tanzanian seaweeds have been placed online. Before the GlobalSeaweedSTAR project, if you went online, what you would see are land-based plants, but not seaweeds. So for the first time, the seaweeds of Tanzania are online due to the GlobalSeaweedSTAR project. And we have published the metadata, which is published on this TANBIF platform, and can be accessed. In the collection of samples, we collected 400 individual species, and these are now being digitized. And from the herbarium of the University of Dar es Salaam, we have digitized 319 individual species, and they are, of course, available now on TANBIF, and they can be accessed through this link that is shown here. We wanted also to assess the seaweed value chain of Tanzania, focusing on the livelihood of farmers, to identify the challenges and coping or adapting strategies for the farmers. And we conducted this, and then the data, its impact to the nation is that the information is available for farmers, policymakers, researchers, students, and so on to utilize. And also we have built the capacity of the farmers to know how to be more resilient, to cope with diseases and the other challenges like prices, climate change, and so on. And we have also built the capacity of researchers with the ability to conduct this kind of research, analyze the data, and write papers. Throughout our journey, we have also publications and a number of conferences that we attended. We have published the 2 papers, one on Journal of Applied Phycology on biosecurity policy issues in Tanzania, and the second one on biosecurity, seaweed biosecurity in Tanzania, in comparison with the other major crops, which is published in environmental challenges. So we have also the synopsis of distribution of macroalgae, which is online on TANBIF. So this we have to notice that the papers have been published in high impact factor journals, and For the early career researchers, it was the first time that they were the first authors of these papers, so very good for them. These are the papers that are published, this one on Journal of Applied Psychology and this one on environmental challenges. And this is the appearance of the synopsis of distribution of macroalgae online on TAN DIF. We have papers that have been accepted and submitted. A paper on seaweed farming in Africa, it has been accepted in Journal of Applied Psychology. We are now incorporating comments from reviewers, and we have submitted a paper on resilience of farmers to Journal of Applied Psychology. We are preparing 5 more papers. One is the effect on biosecurity on seaweed growth and quality. Another one is the checklist of seaweed of Tanzania, morphological and molecular characterization of seaweed, synopsis of distribution of macroalgae. This is a Excel data sheet, and the macroorganisms that foul seaweed farms. We expect that these 5 papers will be finished before the end of the project in December. We have also written a national policy brief titled Coping with Climate Change to Safeguard the Future of the Seaweed Industry in Tanzania. This has 5 pages, and we expect it to print more than 200 copies, and will distribute to policymakers, government departments, NGOs, initiatives, researchers, UN agencies, and so on. And in this one, we look at challenges faced by the seaweed industry, especially climate change and its impact. We also outline briefly recommendations such as the need for investment in research, application of better technologies, and the focused policies to strengthen the seaweed sector. And there are a lot of conferences that have been attended. The first one is the initial training of the early career researchers in UK for 6 months, and the early career researchers attended summer school, for example, in Namibia, workshop in Malaysia on public policy issues, and they have taken courses, Arab programming, statistical software, and the mental software for referencing. And we also made a video program for exhibition of Natural History Museum, and we have been, as individuals, invited as I've been invited as panelist, main presenter in a number of summits. For example, UN Global Compact gender issues, of ocean science, ocean-based climate solutions, UN System Summit, Environmental Biosecurity Seaweed Coalition, Ocean Visions Summit, Seaweed Evolution for Africa, and the others. And the list is long. We have not built capacity in research and writing papers only. No, we have also built capacity in the administration. For example, at the botany department, this was the first time that they handled such a big project. So it has given them capacity to handle. Has given them and also the legal department, when they were dealing with the legal issues for the project, like a material transfer agreement and others, so they had built their capacity. And at the start of the project, we wrote a due diligence for conducting research at the University of Dar es Salaam. This was not there before we started the Global SeaweedSTAR project. So we wrote it under the Global SeaweedSTAR project. And also there are capacity buildings that are personal, increased visibility. For example, I've been contacted to be a committee member of Safe Seaweed Coalition, technical committee for best aquaculture practices, 30 by 30 Pan-African Agenda 2030. I attended the FAO Coffee Aquaculture special session meeting in Norway. I've COP26, I just presented 2 days ago, and we have acquired knowledge from our UK partners on DNA studies, taxonomy, and so on. and we contributed to writing of the global policy brief, and we produced TV and radio programs for CBN, BBC, and so on. So overall, we have been built in capacity of early career researchers and all kinds of courses I have taken. On instruction, botany staff, technicians, young researchers, and even senior researchers have been trained on seaweed disease aspects. We have also acquired research facilities. We have small equipment, light meter, dissolved oxygen meter, turbidity, refractometer, pH meter, and we are purchasing 2 microscopes to be used for seaweed diseases. So this is also something. And we have also purchased 3 cabinets for storing barrier vouchers for the project. So to farmers, we have built their capacity to identify diseases, what actions to be taken about native seaweed species, and to be resilient in the seaweed industry. We have also partnered with a number of NGOs and others. For example, overall GSS team for molecular and biosecurity aspects. We have partnered with other co-authors and researchers from Africa, Asia, Europe, and so on. NGOs such as Ocean Foresters USA, Simility Marine Technology Partners USA, Milady Zanzibar Foundation NGO in Zanzibar. We have a research group, Sea Power in Tanzania and Kenya, government departments in Zanzibar and mainland Tanzania, and of course our colleagues from Philippines and Malaysia. So what are the next steps? The next steps is to continue collaboration, because end of the project is not end of collaboration. So there are things that we wanted to do, but it was impossible because of COVID-19. So we need to continue collaborating on tissue culture, establishing seed nurseries, to get healthy seeds for the farmers, to conduct experiments on farming native species, and innovative farming technologies and value addition. And of course, to look for further funding, maybe through the Safe Seaweed Coalition and the other sources of funding, to continue with doing this kind of work. That is all from me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Flower. What wonderful showcasing of the work that you have completed and managed to achieve over the last 4 years of this project. So huge thank you to you and the rest of the Tanzanian Global Seaweed Star team. Just a quick reminder to all our audience that please do post your questions on in the Q&A box. We're going to come to that session soon where we can answer all your questions. And I just would like to point out as well that both, well, all of the partners are mentioning all of these wonderful papers that have been produced and or are in the early stages of production. I'd just like to say that all of the publications that have been published can be accessed via our website at globalseaweedstar.org. They're all there with links straight to the papers, most of them, the majority of them, which are open access. So please feel free to go and download those papers from the website. And also to let you know that we have a YouTube channel. I'll be talking about that a little bit later, but a lot of the papers, there are presentations, recorded presentations available for the sort of more detailed accounts from each of those papers. So again, they're all on the website. So please do, after this session, go and take a look at those. So, right, OK, on to the next. So our next is our final overseas partner lead, Professor Pai-Kim Lim. From the University of Malaya in Malaysia. She'll be now talking about the work that has obviously taken place over the last 3 to 4 years in Malaysia. And then we'll move straight on to my presentation, which is which is to look at the international impact and legacy of the Global Seaweed Star Programme. So thank you very much, and over to Pai-Kim.
A very warm greeting to all of you. I'm Pai-Kim Lim, the DP leader in Malaysia. It is my great pleasure to share with you the journey of Malaysia team in Global Seaweed Star, where in this project I'm going to highlight the impact and the legacy. The involvement of Malaysia only started 1 year after the implementation of the project. And there is urgency for Malaysia to start the project as soon as possible. We have project leader, Professor Cocktail Cook, and myself to start the work, as well as together with the work package leader. They're working on pests and disease, algae genetic resources, biosecurity application and policy, socio-economic resilience. But most of all, the important part of this project is to recruit the early career researcher so that we can train the next generation of scientists, policymakers, and socio-economists. So we managed to recruit the ECR for various work packages, and at the same time, the UK side has provided PDRA to assist and working hand in hand with the ECR. Together with the various institutions in partnership, now the board is ready, filled with people and expertise, and together with the Department Fishery of Sabah, we have embarked and start the journey of Global SeaweedSTAR program. Okay, if we were to talk the Global SeaweedSTAR, it actually have brought such a great impact and legacy to the seaweed aquaculture industry in Malaysia. In this talk, I will touch on the capacity building, the research facility that have been upgraded through this program, the science or knowledge that we have contributed to the seaweed industry, as well as also through the partnership, we have actually managed to achieve much, and this has also bring contribution to the global networking for Malaysia team. Throughout the course of the project, our ECR have attended a total of 56 of training courses, workshop, and conferences. And over here, I would like to highlight some of the workshop and training for the capacity building of the ECR. We'd like to thank the UK team for organizing the microbiome workshop as well as bioinformatics workshop, which is a very important capacity building for Malaysia team. During the workshop, the PDRAs, the work package leader, have come over to Kuala Lumpur to train the ECR from Malaysia as well as the Philippines. As for WP4, also there was a training workshop being carried out at Kuala Lumpur where the work package leader and PDRA were in Kuala Lumpur to train ECR from Philippines, Tanzania, and Malaysia. The ECR of WP2 and WP4 also have the opportunity to be trained by PDRA of WP4. Dr. Virginie will carry out fieldwork in Sabah. ECR of WP2, Dr. Cecilia Kembe, also have the opportunity to be trained in UK as she was with Indonesia team before she joined the Malaysia team. The whole team of Malaysia was in Jeju Island, Korea to attend the Science Day, which was held in conjunction with the International Seaweed Symposium. Besides being trained, our ECR also have the opportunity to share their knowledge that they gained from the GSSTAR to the interns from the University of Mataram, Indonesia, that was attached to a laboratory on the molecular scale on DNA extraction, PCR amplification, as well as herbarium preparation. Through the GSS Fund, we also have the opportunity to upgrade the existing research facility to enhance our research capability when involved in this Global SeaweedSTAR program. We have upgraded the hatchery, and also we have purchased some small equipment such as thermocycle, YSI multi-parameter probes, mini-PAM, as well as spectrophotometer for the use of the research. The project also promotes equitable partnership and interdisciplinary, where the 4 work packages combine of natural science, policy, as well as socio-economic in order to understand the whole value chain of the seaweed industry in order to achieve sustainable seaweed industry. Let me share with you the current scenario of seaweed aquaculture production in Malaysia. Malaysia is the third largest carrageenan producer in the world and have contributed more than 50% of total aquaculture production in Malaysia. However, we have observed there's a decline in production since it peaked in 2012. Hence, the involvement of Global Seaweed Star is timely so that we may look into what are the challenges that are facing by this industry so that we can provide a suggestion and solution for the industry. Highlight of our research finding. Based on current study, we found that there's relatively very low genetic diversity of the farm eukematoid. However, based on the sampling at the wall population, we found large pool of wall specimen in which there are 15 new haplotype of Kappa ficus malaysianus and 6 new haplotype of Kappa ficus striatus that potentially can be developed as new cultivar. And this shows there's a need of biobanking in order to have a sustainable supply of cultivar for cultivation. Pests and diseases is also one of the main concerns in seaweed aquaculture industry. However, there's little information as regard about diversity of eukematoid associated epiphytic filamentous algae or EFA in Malaysia as well as other parts of the world. Though before our study, the identification is mainly based on morphological. However, it has its limitation. Through the use of molecular marker, we have identified the species diversity is much larger than we anticipate. Besides that, through this study, we also found some new potential species to be described. In general, we found higher diversity and density of EFA on farm than wall eukematoid. For the biosecurity, policy, and farm management, we will carry out using 3 approaches. Firstly is to identify of biosecurity concept in the national policy. Secondly is to evaluate the biosecurity implementation to the seaweed stakeholder through KAP approach. And thirdly is the use of biosecurity at farm level. Based on study, we found there's a lack of biosecurity implementation in the farm management of Malaysia, and the need of incorporation will assist in reducing this ice disease as well as pest outbreak. For socio-economic resilience study, which method were carried out? And based on study, we found that for the seaweed production, the migrant actually have contributed more than half of the production. Hence, there's a need to recognize their contribution as well as also to provide it so that you can further boost the seaweed production in Malaysia. We also found there's lack of coordination in seaweed value chain. In this case, where most all of the development is on the upstream activity and less development for marketing and downstream activity. Besides that, price fluctuation or instability also is one of the major concerns that cause the farmer income to be unpredictable. The outcome of the Global SeaweedSTAR program have been disseminated through publication. As of to date, we have published 6 journal papers, which is Malaysian lead author, and another 3 is UK partner lead co-authorship. At the same time, there are still many publications in preparation, and beside what is being listed here, there are many more to come. In addition to sharing the output to scientific community through journal publication, we also disseminate the result to various stakeholders by publishing 2 books. The first book is on a practical guide to aquaculture of Kappa ficus and eukema in Malaysia, which is in bilingual in English as well as Malay language, mainly to cater the general public and the relevant stakeholder by providing easy to understand text and accompanying picture to introduce seaweed and the value to humankind. The second book is on standard operating procedure of eukematoid cultivation using biosecurity-based approach, which come in 2 versions, one in English and another one in Malay language. The book provides basic guidelines for farm practitioners for the cultivation of eukematoid seaweeds. I'm happy to share with you that last week I received an email from the Deputy Director of Department of Fisheries Sabah that this new book will be used for the management of aquaculture in Sabah. Besides that, we also share the output of our result through animation, which is produced using two languages, Malay and English, mainly to cater for farmers that majority of them are not highly educated. Besides that, we also carry out sharing best practices for the seaweed aquaculture industry in Malaysia through webinar on October 27 and 28, which was carried out 2 weeks ago. Through the involvement in GlobalSeaweedSTAR, it actually have strengthened and widened my global network. This feature showing the research network map accessed in January 2019. While on the right hand is the research networking map currently. As we can see in comparison to year 2019 when I was first involved, as to now, I can see that actually my research collaboration network has expanded a lot, notably to the UK side, European, America, South America, as well as to Africa. Throughout the journey of involvement in GlobalSeaweedSTAR program, I won't say it's a smooth sailing. We do encounter challenges, such as before we start the project, we need to settle various agreements, research agreement among various institutions from multinational, as well as also the material transfer agreement that abide to Nagoya Protocol. We also need to settle as regard the research permit for both international collaborators as well as for ourselves to carry out the research in Sabah. With the COVID-19 pandemic, it also actually have delayed our progress of the report. Hence, at this moment, we can see that there is caused the main delay as regard about publication, as also the arrangement of sharing best practice has been have to change to the mode of webinar instead of physical meeting. However, in comparison to the impacts and the benefits and the result that derive from GlobalSeaweedSTAR, I would say is that the challenges are very minimal and can be ignored. I would like to summarize the key finding and also the suggestion of way forward or next step to take. Based on a study, we found there's relatively very low genetic diversity of cultivar, but the good news is we have reached diversity of new haplotype eukaryotic in our natural population that can be developed as new cultivar. However, before we can introduce as new cultivar, further study such as their susceptibility to pests and disease, climate change resistant, growth rate, as well as carcinogen content are needed. We also find high number of EFA in farm than wall population. Could it be due to the same clonal have been propagated vegetatively for more than 50 years? If that is the case, there's urgent need to replace with new cultivar. The information of EFA can be used to develop molecular marker for early detection. There's a need to incorporate biosecurity in farm management to reduce the disease infection up to 75%. There's also a need to include aid and training for migrant farmers to boost the seaweed production. Center collection for dry seaweed is needed to avoid fluctuation of price. There's also a need to enhance the coordination and incentive of the downstream activity, mainly on marketing and new product development. We have also put all these suggestions into policy brief on Malaysia, which is in the preparation, and also this suggestion is also have been contributed to the global policy brief that we will relaunch later. I would like to end my talk by giving acknowledgement to the funder as well as all the partner institutions. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good day to you all. My name's Professor Elizabeth Cottier-Cook, and I'm the Principal Investigator, Lead Scientist for the GlobalSeaweedSTAR project. I'm absolutely delighted today to be able to talk to you and tell you all about our international impact and legacy. So you've already heard earlier today about the importance of seaweed. I'm sure you're all well aware of that. You're all aware of how the seaweed industry has been growing rapidly over the last 50 years, particularly on the aquaculture production side. You are, I'm sure, all well aware that it's used, the seaweed, both for food purposes and for putting into and used as a thickening agent in foods such as seaweed, ice cream, milk, toothpaste, etc. It's a growing industry, as I said. It's worth $14.7 billion US, and the majority of the production takes place in low to middle income countries, employing over 6 million farmers globally. Obviously, the rapid increase in exponential growth of this industry comes with its associated problems. And as part of the Global Seaweed STAR project, we focused in on those problems are associated with outbreaks of pests and disease. As you can see here, as I'm sure many of you are very aware, there is something known as ice syndrome that causes this whitening of the thallus and disintegration of the thallus. There is also these sort of fine filamentous red algae that coat the surface of the crop, and both obviously lead to significant losses in yield each year. Which then leads to, can lead to catastrophic socioeconomic impacts on the communities reliant on seaweed production. So how can we help with this? Well, back in 2016, a team of us prepared a policy brief along with the United Nations Universities Institute for Water, Environment and Health. This policy brief was extremely well received by the community at large. It's had over 100 million unique views in over 40 countries, and it's now been cited in over 100 scientific publications. So we really knew that this was something that was needed by the seaweed community at large. And the Global Seaweed STAR project was basically born out of this work. And it has the vision of this project was to use specialist UK science capacity to grow research and innovation capability in developing countries engaged in seaweed farming. So what I would like to just do is take a few minutes now to talk through how we have built capacity for the seaweed industry globally. So the impacts. We started, of course, with 9 core partners, including SAMS, where I'm based up in Scotland. We forged partnerships with universities in developing countries that are predominantly interested in, of course, seaweed farming, such as the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, University of Malaya, obviously in Malaysia, and the University of the Philippines, Visayas and CIFDEC in the Philippines. And it was all about basically using UK capability in the organisations that you can see here and transferring that sort of excellence of capability to our overseas partners to help them in addressing this key problem in terms of biosecurity. So those were the 9 key partners that we established at the start of the programme. But we also, as part of the Global Seaweed STAR project, launched a Global Seaweed STAR Research Fund. And this fund was going to be between up to £50,000 per project with a 12-month duration. And as you can see here, we were able to fund 15 research projects spanning countries all over the sort of global south, as it were, all countries that are heavily invested in developing their seaweed industries. So we funded a number of different projects, wide diversity, some purely on the science side, others more to do with developing capacity within the country to work on pests and diseases that were causing outbreaks in that particular country. So if you're interested, all 15 projects will or have already or will have by the end of this year recorded some short videos that we have uploaded to our YouTube Global Seaweed Star channel. So if you would like to find out a little bit more about each of those projects, then please go to that site to hear more. Also, of course, pre-COVID pandemic, we also had a Global Seaweed Star Travel Fund, and we were able to award 26 travel fund awards up to £2,000 to enable researchers to travel to international conferences. For example, we hosted a special session at the ISAP, the International Symposium for Algal Phycology. We hosted a special session there in Korea a couple of years ago, which of course researchers were able to travel to thanks to the fund that we had available. But it also enabled researchers to travel to other research institutes to undertake experiments there, as well as to travel to other meetings, as it were. After, obviously, because of the pandemic, we were unable to carry on with that fund, but we then switched and we set up a new one known as the Capacity Building Fund. Again, £2,000 maximum per person, but this just enabled researchers to attend online virtual conferences which had a registration fee. So we enabled a number of people to do that. Plus, also, we enabled researchers to set up their own virtual workshops, and this money helped go to the organising costs for those. So, as you can see, the map, the connections, this global network really has begun to take shape over the last 3 to 4 years. And then finally, we'll hear a little bit more about this later in our launch for the International Policy Brief, but it's been a great honour to work with over 37 colleagues who are all have an international reputation in seaweed research. 37 colleagues from 30 different research institutes, and we've all come together to develop a new policy brief, which will hopefully pave the way for the future development of new policies, new national and international policies over the years to come for helping out the seaweed industry at large. So we, over the last 4 years, have really brought together quite a unique global network of over 200 specialist seaweed researchers, forming this incredible partnership that we will endeavour to continue to operate for a number of years to come. So the other thing, of course, that I mentioned was capacity building. This is one of the sort of key requisites for by our funders, and it is something that we have worked hard to provide over the last 4 years. Key aspect of the project was to provide 3 to 4 year training for a number of early career researchers. We've been able to do this for 17 researchers. Some of them have been employed full-time on the project for the last 4 years, and this training program also included a 6 months training period here in the UK with our core UK partners. We had managed to enable 11 early career researchers to come to the UK for this period that you can see here in this picture. Obviously, throughout the training period as well, we've provided 8 capacity building workshops, a whole range of subject areas, both for our early career researchers and also for the wider research community within the country that they were held in. So earlier on, obviously, we were able to go in person to host these workshops in our main sort of partner countries in Tanzania, and the Philippines, and Malaysia. Also, we held one in the UK. But then on post-pandemic, we've now moved to, or we have produced another 4 capacity building workshops, which we're able to open up to a much larger audience as well. So it's been great that we were able to, even throughout the pandemic, continue to provide this training to our partners. We've also managed to develop and validate a master's level module in macroalgae. that is part of a major sort of European Erasmus Mundus joint master degree in aquaculture, environment and society. So this module in macroalgae sits within this master's degree, and to date, thanks to GlobalSeaweedSTAR, we have been able to train a further 30 international students across this 6-month module, covering a wide range of topic areas, looking at early life stages, critical points in development, reproductive biology, farm management, legal frameworks and policies, environmental, socioeconomic impacts, biosecurity, genetic selection, etc. So it really has proven to be quite a unique module, and we really don't know of any other worldwide offering this range within the macroalgal sphere. So we're delighted now to be able to offer this module, and it will continue to be run for years to come as part of this joint master's degree. So we've also spent quite a bit of the funds on developing and upgrading infrastructure and equipment in our partner countries. So looking at developing or upgrading laboratories, seedling nurseries, herbaria, and a range of other aspects as well. So really investing in the infrastructure within our partner countries, which allow them now to continue with the work that they have already begun as part of this programme. Of course, we couldn't be working on a project without research excellence being a core aim. Now we have produced a whole range of publications. As you can see, 125 publications to date. There will be many more by the end of this programme. Number of those, 25 of those, are peer-reviewed publications in internationally recognised journals. Again, we've strived to get as many of these publications to be open access, so they are fully available now, this very minute, to all of you. I've provided a selection here. All of them generally have some recorded presentation to go with them that you can find again on our GlobalSeaweedSTAR YouTube channel. Many have been presented in conferences globally, either in person or online. And as I say, they are all available to download via the GlobalSeaweedSTAR.org website. We've also tried to have as much of an impact as possible internationally, at the international scale. Obviously, the partners have talked about how their work has had an impact on the seaweed farmers themselves and also now. Are we lost? Are we still there? Hello, everyone. I think we have lost our live. Have we lost Richard? Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I wonder if everyone can still hear me? We've lost our main. Oh,
hello,
sorry, everyone.
Hello.
We just
I can hear you, Liz.
Yes, thank you, Nidhi. I think we just have to hold. Hopefully we can now go back. It was all going so well, wasn't it? It's always the case with these. So I haven't got my talk here, but it was coming near to the end. Just hopefully that the organisers, our IT specialists, will be able to come back shortly with the remainder of that presentation. I'm just trying to think where I was up to, but hopefully a couple more seconds and we should be back. Otherwise we can move, maybe looking at a question or two while we wait.
Message from Richard Liz,
Yes.
in the chat. Hold the fort. We'll get you back as soon as possible.
Okay. All right. He's coming back. Okay. Right. Well, if we could move quickly then to the Q&A session, which was to follow on from my presentation. So we have a few questions here, and my colleague Helen Berry was going to sort them out for us. So Helen, do you have any questions?
Yes,
that,
yes.
are there that we could put to our panelists? So we have all of our speakers here today, kindly here, waiting in the wings to answer these questions. So Helen, do you want to go with the first question, and then
Yes,
hopefully we can go back to my talk shortly. So
yeah, yes,
okay.
yeah, yes, we do. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
That's good.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Helen.
just apologies, my camera isn't working, so I was just anxious that the audio wasn't working either. But good, that's good to hear it is working. So we've received about 5 or 6 questions, some very interesting ones, and the first we received was just towards the end of Initia's presentation, the first one under National Impact and Legacy, and that came from Ian. It's a long but interesting question, and he asks, has there been any research done under the initiative on the drivers of further mainstreaming seaweed in food systems? How sensitive this is to various production-oriented and consumption-oriented interventions, and where the needed balance is between the two. It is a difficult area of research, and I am no expert, but very relevant for optimizing the efficiency of intervention, ? It would have fitted in with the socio-economic aspect of the initiative, but perhaps out of the scope.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ian. Thanks for that question. And I'm wondering, you touch on the socioeconomic aspects. I just wonder whether Louise, whether you would be able to step in and have a word, because you did cover quite a lot of the seaweed sort of value chain, didn't you, as part of your work package and your work? But could you answer that question with Ian?
Sorry, I'm afraid it cut out for me for a little bit, and I didn't actually hear the question. I heard the very final bit where it said socioeconomics was mentioned. Helen, could you repeat? And I can't also see it. I can't see the question in the chat either.
Yes, no problem. I'll repeat it. Ian asks, has there been any research done under the initiative on the drivers of further mainstreaming seaweed in food systems? How sensitive this is to various production-oriented and consumption-oriented interventions, and where the needed balance is between the two. It is a difficult area of research, and I am no expert, but very relevant for optimizing the efficiency of intervention, ? It would have fitted in with the socio-economic aspect of the initiative, but perhaps out of the scope.
Yes, it was. We would have liked to have done that. We would have liked to have gone further up the seaweed value chain to look at that. I think one thing I should say is that the seaweed value chain at the moment is very focused on carrageenan production and the use of carrageenan. So while there is a lot of excitement about the potential for using seaweed in foodstuffs, both for human and animal foodstuffs, it's not really yet well enough developed. I think it would take quite a lot of work, and I can see my friends and colleagues Anisha and Flower and Paikim nodding along as I'm saying this. So I don't know whether there's something that they would like to come in on. So it's not something we were specifically able to look at. We were focusing much more on working with the social scientists to understand what was happening at the farm level.
Thanks.
But I don't know,
much.
would somebody else like to come in on that?
Yeah. Anyone else, Anne? Or you're on mute? Oh, is there an issue with unmuting yourself there, Anne? I'm not sure what's happened there. Oh, maybe try again now. Just try again now. I think there's a little block. Yeah, I think you're live now.
Luis when he said that we focus our project on what's really happening at the farm site, because that's our objectives. But in the Philippines, I would rather say that we are focusing only on carrageenan at the moment as a food ingredient. Nothing more, nothing less. If we have some deviations, it's just a trickle in the bucket, if I can say. We don't have biostimulants at the moment, just like India or even Indonesia is doing. We don't have. We are on SRC and RC only and ATC. And Ian knows that. He came from the Philippines. He worked in the Philippines. So no progress yet, Ian, up to this date. We haven't gone to that level of diversifying our products insofar as the extraction is concerned from euchematoids. And I think it's the same in Malaysia, or in Malaysia, it's more of the food applications like juice, right, Dr. Fikim?
Yeah, formally I can share with that. Okay, so as mentioned by Luis and Dr. Anisha, that our project initially focused on very much of carrageenan-based industry. But based on our finding in Malaysia, that we found that actually for Malaysia, the value change of solely depending on carrageenan is not actually helping the industry. But the main finding we found is actually we have to diversify the products and to expand that. And we hope that it can be the next stage that we can look into, and that will definitely help to boost the industry. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, Louise, just quickly, and I noticed my presentation's back up and running, so we can go back to that. But Louise, if you want to have a final say on this.
The point that Paikeen made is really important, that as we look to the future of the seaweed industry with all the potential it's got, we really need to make sure that national policies are developed that are not solely based on carrageenan production. It's got to encompass all of this, and there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done on that to understand how policies that support seaweed production help move it into new and exciting value chains.
Thank you, Louise. Yes, I totally agree with you on that point. Right, okay. Sorry about this, everyone, but I think we can just go back to just hearing the last few slides from the International Impact and Legacy session. Thank you. To do over the next few years. So looking at legacy then, finish off with. We, as part of the Global SeaweedSTAR team, have put together a biosecurity policy database. This is freely accessible on the globalseaweed.org website. And if any of you are involved in developing new legislation for your national governments, then this database here has legislation from our key partners and the UK and other parts of the world, which you can download, you can have a look at. It's a fully searchable database that will help you in developing your policy going on forwards into the future. We have also produced over 25 training videos and animations. Again, all of these are uploaded onto the YouTube channel. And I hope that they will provide information for the seaweed farming community for many years to come. Again, posters, leaflets, brochures, guidelines, standard operating procedures, many of which you've heard of from our national partners in earlier talks this morning. But it's been really incredible to see all of this coming together. And again, all of this will be available via our website. We have also produced something called My Seaweed Looks Weird. It's a web portal, again, that you can access via this address. It's available in 3 different languages, English, Spanish and Portuguese, and it's a place where you can report your observations of algal diseases. So if there is something that you're not sure about, or on your farm, or that has appeared in your laboratory, this is an incredible resource which you can contact researchers, and they will be able to take a look at your photographs or your diseased material and be able to give you feedback on what it may be. So please remember that this is an incredible resource that is available to you. As I mentioned, we've been helping the FAO with their progressive management pathway for aquaculture biosecurity, but also in addition to this, and also, you know, it sort of dovetails with this initiative, we've also been looking, and we have produced our own PMP specifically for the seaweed industry. It has 4 stages, very much follows the main aquaculture biosecurity PMP. 4 stages, initially looking at defining risk-based approaches to support seaweed health and production, moving on to then how you can actually take measures to improve biosecurity. 3rd stage, how you can then enhance those measures to be more prepared for future outbreaks. And then 4th, looking at how you can support the national seaweed industry through a sustainable health management system. And we plan to submit this by the end of the month, so hopefully it will be published and available for everyone by early next year. We've also obviously been busy in producing national policy briefs that will, I believe, and international policy briefs that I believe and I hope will be beneficial in steering and providing guidance for policy recommendations for the future. And we'll talk a little bit about this later on in the meeting. And I'm absolutely delighted to be able to share with you the wonderful news that the UK government has agreed to provide another £407,000 towards the development of a seaweed academy. This is also going to be partly co-funded by a GlobalSeaweedSTAR programme. It will be hosted at SAMS. It will enable us to provide information, training, and all sorts of other services to the UK seaweed industry, but also we hope to expand on this seaweed industry so we can then, seaweed academy, so that we can then assist partners throughout the world and specifically tailor our training and our advice very much to local needs. So that's an incredibly important development and legacy, I believe, that has come out of the GlobalSeaweedSTAR programme. So none of this could have been done without all the terrific work and support of the team, and I'd like to end there by saying a huge thank you to everyone involved, and I think we are now going to move on to the question and answers session. Thank you all very much for your attention. Okay, back to me again. Right, we can carry on now with our question and answer session. So Helen, over to you. I see we've got a few more questions coming up. So we've got another 10 minutes or so hopefully we can get through some of these questions. Yes, do you have another one for us?
Yes, our second question was received from Halle, and she asks, has there been feedback from farmers and stakeholders in any of the countries with regards to the pamphlets, posters and books published on the project's results, or have they not yet been widely distributed?
Okay, thank you very much, Halle. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to pass to Anne. Anne's already raising her hand there, because I think in the Philippines we're much further ahead on this, because the pamphlets and booklets have actually actively been distributed for a couple of months now, Anne, hasn't it? Or a month or so. So yeah, Anne, can you tell us a bit about the feedback?
Yes, the brochures and posters have been distributed several months ago, so I'm getting a lot of feedbacks from the farmers as far as tawi-tawi now, and they are claiming that these are very useful to the farmers, because our intention is to give a box of all the pamphlets and the poster to one station, and we choose the leader, and then he will just distribute it to his constituents. And almost the same feedback from them, that these are very useful instructions for them, because in the first place it's their language. It's their language, so it's very useful. So we gave a tausug to the Mindanao people, seaweed farmers, and to the Palawan, the Filipino, because they are Filipino speaking, and to the Visayas, the Bisaya, and of course for everybody international. So it helped a lot. And in fact, these brochures of GSSTAR are more complete than what I have done with Cargill before. So there are updates already there. They are very new, something new already. So it's different presentation. So it's exciting. Actually, if I will go back to the places, hopefully I can. That is why I just asked them to have a selfie of those brochures, and you can just imagine that the faces and of all the big boxes we sent, and there's still others in transit.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Anne. That's great. That's really good to hear. And I think the when you are able to go back and visit the farmers as well and ask them and ask them for their feedback in person, I think we'll get a lot more information back from them too. So it's really good to hear that there's been a positive response anyway to those brochures. And just to reiterate, Paikim, you were saying that the Sabah, the government, the Department of Fisheries in Sabah, they've actually, as you say, as you read out, sent you an email to say that they're going to incorporate. Was it the standard operating procedures?
Yeah, it's the standard operating procedure, because the Department of Fisheries Sabah actually does have the My Good Agriculture Practice courses for farmer. So if they are incorporate that, so when they run the courses, they will share with the farmer on how they manage it. So, and also the booklet that we prepare, we actually are going to print and to distribute through the Department of Fishery, because they are the one that is going to be in touch. And we hope that we also can get their feedback once we have the opportunity to visit them again when the situation is better. Yeah.
Yeah. And Paikim, just interesting. Have you had anyone ask you for, outside of Malaysia? Have you had, or are you thinking of distributing it further afield?
Because for the booklet is actually we already uploaded in GlobalSeaweedSTAR website. The PDF form is free, so anybody can upload it. But for the hard copy, I think probably if anyone is really would like to have, can write to us. We are willing to share. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the same, Anne, as well, isn't it? If you want a hard copy of any of the production or brochures, and the same for flour in the Philippines or Malaysia, please just write to yourselves. But again, just to let everyone know, you can download all of these outputs, all of these brochures and posters. They're on the globalseaweedstar.org, or they will be readily available for you to download. But yes, if you would like a hard copy, then please do write to our country leaders, and I'm sure they'll be happy to send you a copy. Okay, thank you very much for that, and thanks, Halle, for that question. Okay, Helen, do you have another question for us?
Yes, the next one has come from Paddy, and he asks, keen to understand how this fantastic research might help guide the development of needs-based insurance products for better protecting farmers' livelihoods. What are the next steps here, and can improved availability of environmental data on farms further support risk management? Now, Louise has submitted a response to Paddy, which is very helpful, and I can read that out if you would like.
Or maybe Louise, are you still with us? Are you able to elaborate on your response there a little bit?
Yes, I am, and it's a really important question. I did respond in the chat. Sorry, my internet cut out a little bit. So it's a very important question for the seaweed industry, because seaweed farmers face both slow onset hazards, as we're seeing with sort of warming temperatures, but also rapid onset hazards, whether that's an increase in typhoons and what have you. Now, I would say that in terrestrial crops, there are insurance products that are being developed called weather index insurance products, where you're able to bundle up sort of the supply of seeds with a very small insurance premium that gets triggered when rainfall is below a certain level or what have you, and that pays out. In the seaweed industry, in some of the sort of in higher income countries, I think this is certainly possible. But in the Philippines, Tanzania, and Malaysia, there was a lot of work that we needed to do to really understand what are farmers' existing coping strategies, and therefore what is that going to say about what their attitudes to risk are? Because you have to understand that, as well as understanding what the environmental stresses are and the environmental risks are. You've got to understand how seaweed farmers are already coping, and how insurance products would then fit into what they're already doing. And they're coping as a family, they're coping as an extended family, and they're coping as a network. And what we found, particularly G's work in the Philippines, showed that this is very gendered. So we really need to understand the gender components of this to be able to design insurance products that meet the needs of every single seaweed farmer, because a seaweed farmer is often associated with a man, but women play very specific roles. They can be seaweed farmers in their own right, yet they may have different needs for insurance than men. But the other thing I would say, so there's that sort of work that needs to be done first, and we helped lay the groundwork for that, but we weren't then able to move into things, more detailed understanding of risk attitudes. But the other thing I would say is that I think it is very important that it's not just about insurance. You've got to think about the industry as a whole. And what our natural science colleagues have shown very clearly is that it's actually the quality of the seedlings that farmers would subsequently be able to purchase to restock their farms if they had insurance that is of extreme importance to the sustainability of the seaweed industry in future. Farmers would need to be, at the moment, farmers get the seedlings from their friends and from their neighbours. Now, these may be diseased. They may be part of the same stock that is more susceptible to ice size. So if you're going to try and think about putting an insurance system in place for seaweed farming, it's got to be accompanied with the sort of biobanking that the rest of the project has been talking about, where there's got to be a much stronger and more stable supply of very, very high quality, genetically diverse seaweed, which will reduce the risk to the insurance industry that insurance products will not contribute to the development of a more sustainable seaweed production and seaweed industry. Again, hand over to my natural science colleagues to take this further.
Okay, I'm conscious of time, and we've got all these questions, and we're not going to be able to get through all of them. But Anne, have you got a quick response?
Yeah, a continuation of what Louis have said, because when I was part of the roadmap of the Philippines, all the recommendations are being now stipulated in that actions to be taken, and I'm so happy that I was part of that group in framing the seaweed roadmap of the Philippines. So, like for example, you said the biobanking and the conservation of the wild populations to have new cultivars for future cultivation. It's there already. We have already that in the roadmap. So, for the government. So it's a matter of implementing them in the next few years. And I think there are some officers from the Philippine government listening to us, and they're aware of what I'm saying.
Okay, Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Paddy, for your excellent question there. Now, I'm just conscious that we have sort of come to the end of our question and answer session. We should have had double the amount of time there for this, but we will, I promise, we will take your questions and we will look at them and we will respond to you, or we will put a response together to each of those questions after this event. So thank you all so much for submitting the questions. I'm sorry we needed more time, obviously, but we will get back to you on that. And I think now I'm going to move on to the very exciting section of the programme known as the identified as the launch of the International Policy Brief. So I'm going to share my screen now with everyone, if this works and I don't lose you all. So hopefully I can now talk you through the launch then. So yes, hello everyone who has just joined us. My name's Elizabeth Cottier-Cook and I'm the lead scientist on the Global Seaweed STAR programme and the first author on a new policy brief by the United Nations University Institute on Comparative Regional Integration Studies and SAMS, the Scottish Association for Marine Science. The policy brief being entitled Ensuring the Sustainable Future of the Rapidly Expanding Global Seaweed Industry, a Vision. So the International Policy Brief is the culmination of ideas and thoughts generated via workshops, interviews, conference meetings, side events, roundtable discussions, all held over the last 4 years with a wide range of stakeholders involved in the seaweed industry. These stakeholders including seaweed farmers, buyers, importers, policymakers, associations, non-government organisations and government agencies globally. So without further ado, I would like to officially launch the 2021 International Global Seaweed STAR Policy Brief. I would also like to take this opportunity to highlight the collaborative nature of this policy brief, which you can see has been written by over 37 authors, many of whom are international experts in their field from 30 institutes based in 18 countries worldwide. I would also like to take this opportunity to highlight the 8 key policy recommendations that are included in this policy brief, including developing clear international seaweed-related policies and regulations to improve biosecurity and genetic diversity. Develop global, regional and national technology transfer and capacity building initiatives focusing on biosecurity and genetic diversity. Develop regional and national seed stocks and biosecure nurseries. Maintain the genetic diversity in wild stocks. Further develop assessment tools. Incentivize the integration of seaweed production with other extractive and fed aquaculture species and maritime activities. Channel support for long-term investments to promote the beneficial aspects of this industry and establish international seaweed research networks. Finally, I'd like to thank the team at UNU CRIS who have supported the development and production of this policy brief, and of course a huge thank you to all the co-authors who have helped create this brief. If you're of course interested in reading the brief in its entirety, please do visit the website shown here to download your own copy. I would now like to hand over to Philippe de Lombard, Director of UNU CRIS, to say a few words. Over to you, Philippe.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Well, allow me first of all to congratulate the whole team of the Global Seaweed STAR project for the hard work over these 4 years. UNU CRIS has come in at the end in the final stages of the project when we took the relay from our sister institute, UNU INWE, and this way, let's say, guarantee the continuity of the involvement of United Nations University in this exciting project. Well, allow me also to congratulate you for the policy brief, and I would say with that long list of authors, it's almost a manifesto, I would say, which will surely have an important impact. At UNU-CRIS, we are particularly interested in the governance aspects of this industry, especially when these governance aspects and challenges are cross-border in nature or are regional in nature. And this is obviously also the case here in this case of the seaweed industry. It's not only the case because of, let's say, the geographical location of these activities, which are often involving border areas where you have typically these external effects, these externalities that also affect communities on the other side of the border, but also for other reasons. As already mentioned, there is a clear link between these, let's say, production activities and then the further regional value chains where the product is further processed. As mentioned in the policy brief, there is a need for regulation, more regulation of, let's say, the derived products and the use of the derived products, which then translates back into a demand for the original product. As mentioned in the policy brief, there is also a further need for additional and new biosecurity policies, policies related to genetic diversity, and these policies will not only be of different types, but will necessarily be policies at different levels, national levels, regional levels, global levels. Finally, in the policy brief, there is also a mention of the need for more coordination of research and capacity building, again, both at the global and at the regional level, a consolidation of specific research capacity in this area and for this industry. So I will not further extend my intervention here because of reasons of time, which is always scarce. But let me just say and hope that this policy brief will indeed inspire policymakers. And thanks again to all those who have contributed to this very interesting policy brief. So thank you very much, and over to Elizabeth again, and then Nidhi.
Thank you so much, Philippe, for those kind words. Thank you. Yes, now I would like to introduce Dr. Nidhi Nagablatla. Nidhi is a Senior Research Fellow and Cluster Coordinator for the Climate Change and Natural Resources Programme at UNU-CRIS. I've known her for quite a while now. She was a partner of mine, a co-author on the 2016 policy brief that we put together. That she's also, obviously been a member of the GlobalSeaweedSTAR team from the beginning, and has really been instrumental in assisting us not only with the production of this international policy brief, but she's also obviously helped with the 3 other national policy briefs that we've heard about earlier today. That will hopefully be published by the end of the year, of course, for the Philippines, Malaysia and Tanzania. So, as I say, Nidhi is one of the co-authors on this latest international policy brief, and I'd like to hand over to her now for her to say a few words. Thank you, Nidhi.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks for the kind words, and so good to see this day after years of research and intervention and co-creation. So co-creation is my first keyword for this event, and I would like to congratulate the collective and collaborative action from global to local scale, a true manifestation of creating something together, knowledge channeling, interaction, and I think I was lucky and I was very fortunate to be a part of at least some of these activities. But congratulations to the team again for this milestone. My second keyword in the mix is now nature-based solutions. We didn't touch a lot upon it, but I do see that this production system in particular bears a lot of relevance to be positioned as an intervention for nature-based solutions. And nature-based solution is picking up in the international development and sustainability discourse as a potential solution with multiple benefits and a platform to engage multiple stakeholders. So perhaps in future research for seaweed researchers, but also stakeholders in the value chain, this could be a leverage that should be further investigated. My third point is on the climate connection. Why scientifically there's a huge deal of evidence on the adaptation and also the mitigation potential of seaweed in particular. And as UK is now hosting COP26 at Glasgow, this event, this discussion we are having today is very relevant, because I think interventions like seaweed that have multiple benefits that are providing an insight or a platform for coastal communities to engage could offer that potential. My fourth point here is organizing integrated policy support systems to again re-emphasize on the need for building technical capacity as the industry is rapidly expanding, and we all agree to that. So should be the efforts of building technical capacity, also building incentive structures, again leveraging with NBS, nature-based solutions, but also the climate, positioning it as a potential solution for climate challenges mitigation. And I would close my intervention with a fifth point. So reckoning and acknowledging the significance of seaweed industry with international and national environmental agreements. And I would particularly, again, take your attention to the Sustainable Development Goals. Liz has already pointed the relation with some goals, in particular 14 with coastal resilience and use of sustainable use of coastal and marine resources. 16 in particular was strengthening institutions and policies, and 17 that we have demonstrated as a team of co-creation and collaboration. But also this intervention, this GSTAR program should remains very relevant as UN has announced the Ocean Decade in 2021, which again stimulates the agenda of bringing ocean science, evidence and policy towards feeding into adaptation and mitigation strategies linked to climate change as one core objectives amid many other objectives that talk to socio-economic and well-being of communities involved in use of marine and coastal resources. The UN General Assembly, very fortunately, has also declared 2022 as the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture. And this will be made official on November 19th next week. So perhaps some bright light to look at. And again, this agenda is talking about inclusive value chains, gender sensitive policy in the aquaculture sector, and also attending to integration with multilateral agreements like Sustainable Development Goals. And not to forget our One Health aquaculture approach, which we also outlined briefly in the international policy brief. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to highlight some of these key points that remain very relevant in connecting this this policy message that we have framed together for the industry and for all the stakeholders attached to it. Thank you, and over.
Thank you so much, Nidhi. Thank you. Yes, I totally agree with everything that you're saying there. And I'd just like to take this opportunity as well, just to say a few final words, if that's okay, about the launch of this policy brief. I just wanted to stress that even though this policy brief was one of our final deliverables of the Global Seaweed Star programme, it really isn't the end of the journey as I see it, and it is just the start of a new chapter. I want this to be the beginning of the next phase of our work. And as I mentioned recently in my speech at the Global Aquaculture Conference in support of the Shanghai Declaration, I believe that we all recognise that seaweed aquaculture has a pivotal role in global food security and in addressing the climate crisis. It's relevant to all the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and I can believe it can make a significant contribution to the Agenda 2030. The key challenge now, of course, is to seek further investment to support innovative research and development to enable the sustainable upscaling of seaweed aquaculture and to address key environmental, social and economic challenges facing the industry. These include poverty reduction, gender equality, inclusion, traceability, conservation and restoration of ecosystems, reversing biodiversity loss, and finding ways for the industry to adapt to the impacts of climate change, such as managing pest and disease outbreaks. But we also need to encourage capacity building, technology transfer, networking, and the strengthening of existing partnerships, such as ours, particularly promoting South-South and South-North cooperation for this purpose. I was therefore delighted to be part of the creation of the Safe Seaweed Coalition last year, funded by the Lloyd's Register Foundation, with the vision to create new and strengthen existing global partnerships to support the safety and sustainability of the seaweed industry. The recent announcement that I mentioned earlier of further funding by the UK government to support the creation of a Seaweed Academy will also hopefully provide further capacity building and technology transfer for the seaweed industry for years to come. This is such a great start to the next chapter, but I urge every one of you to speak to your government representatives and urge them to seek further funding from organisations such as the World Bank and the UN Environment Programme to support future programmes that aim to address the key recommendations that we outlined today in our policy brief. Thank you all so much for your attention and for your support. I think we're now going to move on to a very short video created by our incredibly talented filmmaker here at SAMS, Mr. Andy Crabb, and then I'll be back to you all with some closing remarks. Enjoy.
Seaweed farming is growing, and quickly. Over the past 50 years, global seaweed production has increased from 2 million tonnes to nearly 35 million tonnes. The industry, largely based in low to middle income countries, is now worth $15 billion and supports more than 6 million farmers. Billed as a superfood and used in agriculture, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, medicines, and even in COVID-19 testing, seaweed and its production process also offers alternatives to fossil fuel products, restores marine habitats, and mitigates climate change through carbon capture. But subsequent global demand has driven a rapid growth in the industry, and that has come at a price. Warming oceans caused by climate change have made some coastal waters too hot for crops to grow and led to an increase in seaweed disease and pest outbreaks. A reliance on a limited number of commercially grown species with low genetic diversity has left crops vulnerable to disease and environmental change. Wild stocks have also been over-harvested. The unintentional introduction and spread of diseases and pests, often due to a lack of biosecurity and early detection measures, has crippled small-scale farms and harmed the wider supply chain. Our Global SeaweedSTAR programme, funded by UK Research and Innovation's Global Challenges Research Fund, has been collaborating with research teams in 29 countries worldwide to address these challenges and safeguard this vitally important industry. Taking expertise from our teams in the UK, Tanzania, the Philippines and Malaysia, we have worked with more than 600 seaweed farmers to better understand weak links in the seaweed supply chain. We've shared knowledge and developed practical solutions to the key challenges facing the seaweed industry. Through a range of publications, training workshops, and online resources, such as the Seaweed Disease Atlas, we have been able to support farmers and develop research and cultivation facilities at our partner institutes. Working with the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, we've influenced global policies to help safeguard farms through improved biosecurity. Our Global Seaweed Star Fund has supported an additional 15 research projects worldwide, each addressing specific challenges facing the industry at a national or regional level. Meanwhile, we have been training the next generation of seaweed scientists in developing countries, increasing their research and innovation capacity. With the launch of an updated international policy brief, we've made a series of recommendations that will ensure the seaweed industry continues to flourish and grow in a more sustainable way. If we look after this precious resource, the future is seaweed.
Yeah, I believe the future is seaweed, as we say. So thank you very much, Andy, for producing that wonderful video. So on behalf of the Global Seaweed Star team, I'd like to thank you all for coming along to our online finale, and to the many of you who have contributed to our question and answer sessions. I promise we'll get back to you with our answers shortly. I hope that you all agree that we are at an extremely exciting time in terms of seaweed research, and it's wonderful to see the impact of the Global Seaweed Star programme and the impact that has been made in this area over the last 4 years. It really has been an incredible team effort, and I can imagine that the close working relationships and friendships that have been developed will no doubt be strengthened even further through future collaborative research programmes. I'd like to also take this opportunity to give a big thank you to our UKRI project officer, Debbie Harding, who has guided us so expertly through the reporting challenges, and to our advisory board chairs, Malcolm Beveridge and Ruth Garcia Gomez, and board members, Jill Mallon, Gwang-Hoon Kim, Melba Bondad-Renazzo, Mike Roberts, Patricia Bianacci, and Shona Hutchinson. We really are so grateful to all of you for your support over the last 4 years. And so on that final note, I would now like to bring the Global Seaweed Star Finale officially to a close, and here's to the beginning of a new chapter in global seaweed research. Thank you.